Welcome to the show, friends. This is the 13th episode of Distinguished Comics Radio, and it is Friday, January 24, 1941. I'm Simon Carver, speaking to you from London again, where the blackout curtains are drawn tight, and every evening has that peculiar feeling of being half ordinary, half borrowed.
And I'm George Wilson in the New York studio, minding the microphone, the switches, and Simon's precious stacks of comic books. First time you and I have done this across the Atlantic, Simon. Feels a little like trying to shake hands through a submarine cable.
Through a submarine cable is exactly right. And that strange split is part of the hour, really. Over here, people listen for engines in the night. Back home, folks read the same war headlines at breakfast and wonder what kind of world is being built in the dark. Which makes today's subject feel uncannily apt.
Batman. Detective Comics numbers 35 through 39. Part 1 of our 1940 Batman look. And there is just too much good stuff here to rush past. First Hugo Strange, first Robin, and a whole run where the strip stops being merely a tough crime feature and starts becoming its own kind of fever dream.
We've circled around this fellow before. His first impact, the monk, the origin in Detective 33, that whole early harshness. But now we're into a new stretch. Not the birth cry, the deepening voice. The pages get faster, stranger, warmer in one sense, and more dangerous in another.
Warmer because they gave the grim Batman a kid sidekick. More dangerous because they also gave him a bald madman named Hugo Strange. Seems fair. Here's the plain version. Superman hits a room like daylight. Batman hits it like a rumor. That's the difference. He doesn't announce hope. He lets crooks think the shadows have teeth.
A rumor. That's the token. I think that's exactly why Batman fits this winter so well. January 1941 is full of people peering into darkened streets, dimmed windows, blacked out coastlines, asking what moves where they cannot see. Batman takes that public habit of mind, fear in darkness, imagination filling the gaps, and turns it into a weapon for the good side.
And it isn't just atmosphere. It changes the mechanics of the stories. A policeman shows up after the fact. Batman arrives before the nerves settle. The crook hears something, turns, and there's a cape where there wasn't one a second ago. That's not law. That's pressure.
Pressure is a good word. Roosevelt's For Freedom speech on January 6th gave folks big moral language. Freedom from fear, especially. But comics often work from the other end. They begin in fear and ask what sort of figure could master it. Batman doesn't remove the darkness. He learns to live in it so completely that the darkness becomes his stage.
And by 1940, that stage is widening. We're not just getting mobsters and fedoras anymore. We're getting mad science, circus tragedy, bizarre cult trappings, boats at night, steel traps, strange chemical tricks. Bruce Wayne's world isn't simply crime now. It's starting to smell like myth.
Not mythology in the grand Olympus sense. More like city mythology. The stories a frightened cabman tells another frightened cabman at 2 in the morning. I heard he came through the skylight. I heard bullets don't stop him. I heard the bat was standing on the dock before the fog lifted. That kind of thing.
And if you're the crook in those stories, you don't much care whether it's poetry or police work. You just know he's coming.
Let's start with Detective Comics 35, January 1940. Transitional issue. You can feel the strip tightening its belt. The opening gives us Commissioner Gordon sitting with Batman, and almost at once we're into a chain of murders tied to notes, commissions, and a gangland plot moving through city rooms and moving automobiles. It's less gothic than the monk material, but the city itself feels meaner, more crowded, more anxious.
The city's the thing. That red police car streaking across the streets, the body found after the scream, the commissioners talking about a noted explorer, and a bomb on a boat. It's got that tabloid panic. Everybody's a little behind the story except Batman.
And visually, this issue keeps shoving Batman against city geometry. Doorways, stairwells, windows. He doesn't just enter scenes, he intrudes on them. There's that broad panel of him in the doorway, cape pouring down, and half the effect is simply how much black shape he occupies compared with ordinary men in ordinary suits.
That doorway panel is the memory hook for me. 1 second you've got thugs jawing. Next second, the whole frame belongs to the cape. It's like someone cut a chunk out of the wall and night walked in. That's when the strip really understands the character's silhouette.
Yes, the silhouette is almost more important than the face. In Superman, the body carries the promise. In Batman, the outline does. Ears, shoulders, cape points. You can identify him in shadow before you can identify him as a man. That matters enormously in number 35 because the plot is full of pursuit and intimidation.
And he's rough here. Let's not polish him up. He's throwing punches, kicking a gunman across a room, pressing hoods for names, racing from clue to clue with very little bedside manner. When a man won't talk, Batman doesn't offer coffee. He offers consequences.
Still, I think what's changing is the angle of that roughness. In 1939, he could feel almost like vengeance looking for a body. In 35, he's becoming elemental, less angry rich man in costume, more Stormfront over Gotham. That may sound fanciful, but the comic earns it through staging. He's no policeman with a warrant book. He's weather.
Weather. I'll allow it because the issue keeps giving him those sudden atmospheric arrivals. And once a hero becomes weather, the town itself starts reacting before he appears. That's new. Now number 36, February 1940. Here's where the strip gets a villain worthy of its nerves. Professor Hugo Strange. Bald head, little round glasses, mad doctor manner. And most important, he's not just another gun thug. He's got a theory of crime.
The round glasses are the token. Those little spectacles make him look almost scholarly until the script lets him start muttering about fear, murder, and experimental methods. It's a marvelous bit of comic book wickedness, a mind that looks clinical and behaves diseased.
The case begins around those bizarre murders and the whispers of a monster strangler. There's Steve Crane and Bert Halloran, clues scattered among respectable men and dead ends. And Batman's following a trail that feels half detective yarn, half horror house. Strange is using chemical and theatrical means to magnify panic.
And that's why Strange matters. Earlier Batman crooks often wanted money first and atmosphere second. Strange wants domination through atmosphere itself. He uses fear as equipment. Gas, unusual killings, masked or manipulated agents. He turns dread into a method of operation.
Which is closer to Batman's own style than any earlier rogue. And that's the point. Strange isn't just opposing Batman physically. He's trying to out-Batman Batman. He wants men spooked, disoriented, unable to trust what they see. That makes him personal.
Exactly. Built to haunt rather than merely fight. And once Strange enters the strip, Batman's whole lane tilts a little further toward the uncanny. Not supernatural, mind you, at least not here, but scientific grotesque, laboratory evil, civilization with a cracked skull beneath the hat.
The cracked skull beneath the hat is good. Because Strange feels like the sort of educated menace a modern city could actually produce. Not a vampire in a castle. A man with a room, chemicals, hired muscle, and no conscience.
The other great pleasure of number 36 is simple movement. This issue flies. Quiet clue scene, abrupt leap, gunfire, a raid, an interior fight, another dash, another reveal. It's almost impatient with stillness.
That February cover tells you the whole story. Batman balanced in a construction frame, cape blown wide, a thug going over backward with a knife. The cover's selling vertical action, not just fists, but height.
Vertical is the word. Batman in 36 starts to feel almost airborne, not because he has Superman's impossible powers, but because the cape and the panel rhythm keep cheating him upward. He doesn't walk into danger. He seems to drop through it, swing through it, spring over it.
I'm going to give you one exact image. That panel where he clears a 6-foot fence in a single bound. 6 feet. The comic bothers to brag on the number, and you understand why. It's selling Batman as athlete, not merely bruiser.
That 6-foot fence panel is sticky. I won't forget it. And inside buildings, too, he moves like a thrown blade. A room goes from conversation to catastrophe because Batman crashes through a threshold at full speed. It's not the same as those slower monk pages where dread accumulates. Here, the dread explodes.
A thrown blade is fancy, but I know what you mean. He's faster in the joints. Shoulders forward, cape trailing behind, always halfway between a wrestler and a glider. That matters because it makes the danger fun. Not just grim. Fun.
And I had a little personal reaction to that, I admit. Sitting over here in London, hearing aircraft alluded to every day, one becomes newly sensitive to any image of a man mastering height. That man's version is fantasy, certainly, but it carries the same emotional charge, rising above a frightened city and using the night better than the villains do.
That's the first time I've envied Batman's cape as a piece of equipment. Looks ridiculous on an ordinary fella. On him in 36, it looks practical, like a machine for changing gravity by force of personality. Then, number 37, March 1940, and the book gets stranger again. We're out in a more exotic-feeling racket. Docks, boats, account, a steel box trick, blades, waterfront business, and a villain setup that's half smuggling melodrama, half penny dreadful opera.
There's a count in the mix, forged passports, whispered instructions, and Batman moving from backroom clue gathering to open combat with a kind of breezy confidence. That's what strikes me about 37. The strip now trusts its own identity. It no longer seems embarrassed by being theatrical.
The steel box beat is my marker. A steel box cut open by torch, bodies vanishing, the docks at night. Batman tracing the scheme by piecing together practical details. Cargo, routes, aliases, waterfront habits. That's Bill Finger's Detective Strange showing through the costume business.
And those gadgets keep arriving as natural extensions of the body. Rope, grapnel, cape, car, timing, sudden evasions. Nothing feels as outlandish as a superpower, but all of it pushes the comic towards spectacle. You can feel the feature saying, we may be a detective strip, but we are not obliged to be dull about it.
What I like in 37 is the harder edge. Batman's methods are still rough enough that you notice them. He's not a smiling policeman with a notebook. He lets a crook sweat. He lets another talk himself hoarse. He shows up where nobody can hit him clean, and then hits first. Morally, the strip is still gray enough to keep me interested.
Gray enough. That's an excellent phrase for Batman in this moment. He hasn't become tame, but 37 proves the creators can widen the canvas without losing the core. Crime, spectacle, weirdness, speed. They can all sit together now.
And the costume finally feels native to the stories, rather than imported from some other craze. In 1939, there were moments Batman seemed like a pulp detective wearing somebody else's carnival gear. By 37, no. The cape, the shadows, the weird villains, the gadgets, they belong to the same house.
Now, The Earthquake. Detective Comics 38, cover dated April 1940. Robin, the Boy Wonder. And I do mean Earthquake because this is not a minor adjustment. It changes the feature's blood pressure in a single installment.
Dick Grayson, Flying Graysons, circus performers, parents murdered during the act. That is a strong origin, cruel, clean, memorable. It parallels Bruce Wayne without copying him lazily. Another boy sees his family destroyed by criminals, but this time Batman gets there in time to do something with the grief.
In time is the token. That's the emotional hinge. Batman could not save his own parents. He can save Dick Grayson from becoming a wreck, a stray, or a corpse. So Robin gives Batman someone to protect, yes, but also someone through whom he may rewrite his own first wound. That's powerful stuff for such brisk pages.
And the circus background is perfect comics material. Trapeze, acrobatics, bright costume, criminal sabotage, crowds, spotlights. You're adding a boy who can plausibly move like the hero, and you're doing it in a setting kids can picture instantly. That's sharp construction.
There's a warmth at once. Not softness, exactly. Warmth. Robin talks. He reacts. He asks. He's thrilled, scared, eager. Batman suddenly has a conversational partner in costume, and that means the page no longer has to depend on captions and crook chatter alone. The strip becomes more alive from panel to panel.
And faster. That red tunic and yellow cape make the action read quicker. You can spot the kid across a panel in an instant. Batman is Shadow. Robin is Spark. Put them together, and the eye hops from one to the other.
Shadow and Spark. I love that. And there's that marvelous little ache in it, too. Bruce Wayne taking in Dick Grayson is not just a plot contrivance. It tells us something about Bruce. Beneath the cowl and the fists, there is a man who sees an orphaned child and refuses to leave him alone with the same darkness.
I'll give the feature credit. It could have turned mawkish there. It doesn't. The kid gets trained, yes, but he also gets a mission. He matters to the plot immediately. He's no mascot. Here's the practical change Robin brings. Dialogue. Batman alone is a hard sell for 12 pages at a time, unless the villains talk enough to fill the air. Give him a boy partner, and suddenly every leap, clue, and risk has a second angle.
A second angle, yes. One man broods, two characters create rhythm. Batman can warn, instruct, worry, even joke a little. Robin can ask the question the reader is already asking. And because he's younger, more visible, more vulnerable, danger lands differently. A trap aimed at Batman is exciting. A trap aimed at Robin is alarming.
That vulnerability is the key. The boy gives the strip permission to be adventurous, without wallowing in gloom. Batman has to think not just as Avenger, but as Guardian. That sharpens him. Doesn't soften him. Sharpens him.
I agree. Some people might assume a child sidekick automatically gentles the thing, but in 38 and after, I'd say it broadens the emotional range instead. There's room now for banter, affection, instruction, irritation, pride. Batman becomes more human because we see what he's like in relation to another life.
And the phrase, dynamic duo, hasn't worn grooves into anybody's brain yet, but the idea is already there. One dark, one bright. One heavy, one nimble. One haunted, one resilient. It's a boxing combination, really. Jab and cross. Different weights, same target.
The boxing combination is perfect for you to notice. And in continuity terms, forgive me, I am who I am, Robin also gives Batman a future inside the strip. Before, each case could feel like a closed midnight vignette. Now, the stories connect through relationship. We want to know how this partnership develops.
That's true. Robin turns Batman from a recurring apparition into the center of an ongoing household, training regimen, and mission. It starts making the feature serial in a richer way.
Which brings us to Detective Comics 39, May 1940, where Robin is no longer an experiment. He's integrated. The cover alone tells you as much. Batman and Robin together in a room of armed trouble. The kid already part of the composition, rather than an appendage.
And the story plays that way. We've got a case involving Zuko and gangland fallout from the circus murder thread, a note passed around town, Batman and Robin working as a genuine team, and the whole thing crackling because the boy is in the machinery now.
I'm glad you named Zuko. That continuation matters. The feature isn't just introducing Robin and then forgetting the responsible party. It lets the murder of the Flying Graysons echo into the next issue. That's stronger serial thinking.
There's a terrific physical logic to 39, too. Robin gets his moments on the girders, swinging, balancing, taking risks a grown bruiser couldn't quite manage the same way. Batman handles the heavy impact. Robin supplies speed and angle. You can feel the division of labor.
That girder sequence under the moon is the memory image for me. Pink steel, black sky, yellow cape whipping about. It's almost like the strip suddenly discovered an extra musical note. The acrobatics aren't decoration. They reveal who Robin is and why Batman needed precisely this boy, not any random youngster in a domino mask.
And 39 balances three things at once: crime solving, hand-to-hand punishment, and personality. That's not easy in these short stories. One page you've got a clue or a note, next page a fight, next page Robin piping up, next page Batman finishing the job. It moves.
Moves like a serial engine, exactly. Every page pushes the next. That's what impressed me most revisiting 39. Batman now feels less like a novelty feature tucked in an anthology and more like a machine that can keep generating situations, villains, and emotional turns indefinitely.
Indefinitely is a long time, Simon. But yes, by number 39, you can feel the book stop wobbling. It knows what kind of creature it is. I want to circle back once more to Hugo Strange, because he's the other giant event in this run. Robin changes the hero. Strange changes the threat. Those are not the same thing.
That distinction is important. Robin expands Batman outward. Strange reaches inward. He feels like one of the first adversaries designed around the idea that Batman himself is an unusual type of mind and will need an unusually diseased opponent.
Earlier rogues could be heavy, cruel, or bizarre, sure. But Strange is grotesque in an intellectual way. The chemistry, the staging, the patience, the use of manipulated fear. All of it says this man wants to control people like apparatus. That's colder than ordinary gangsterism.
And because Batman already inhabits a horror-tinged visual world, dark rooms, shadows, sudden appearances, Strange can pull the whole feature further toward horror without breaking it. He's a bridge villain. Not supernatural like the monks seem to be, not merely criminal like a mob boss. He occupies that unsettled region in between.
Bridge villain. Good. Also, and this matters, Strange can make Batman's strength feel insufficient by itself. A hard punch solves only some problems. If the enemy is manufacturing panic, planting false impressions, setting traps, distorting testimony, then Batman has to think as well as hit.
Which helps explain why Bill Finger's detective side becomes so crucial right here. Batman needs clues, inference, pattern recognition. Strange turns investigation back into survival. In that sense, he doesn't just menace Batman, he validates the detective in Detective Comics.
And he leaves a stain. After Hugo Strange, the strip knows it can create villains who don't merely obstruct the hero's path to the crook, but darken the whole emotional weather of the book. That's a big step.
Let's step back from the issues for a moment and talk creators. Bob Kane, New York boy, DeWitt Clinton High School, Cooper Union, animation training at Fleischer before drifting hard into comics. Batman begins in 1939 after Superman's success sends editors looking for more costumed heroes. Kane is essential to the visual fact of Batman, the look, the speed of production, the drive.
And Bill Finger matters just as much to the flavor. Finger comes into Kane's studio in 1938, writes that first Batman story in Detective 27, and by all appearances helps shape the character away from a generic strongman in tights notion toward something stranger. Cowl, cape, gloves, Bruce Wayne, scientific detective business, all that.
Bruce Wayne is the token that always delights me. Finger reportedly pulled the name from old American associations. Bruce for Robert the Bruce, Wayne after Mad Anthony Wayne. That's not random. It gives the alter ego an aristocratic but active sound. Neither too comic nor too plain.
And once the feature's running, you can see Finger's habits in the scripts. Orderly clue trails, vivid villains, odd props, specific criminal devices, and a taste for dramatic narration without losing the mechanics. He doesn't just say, crime happens. He gives you a steel box, a gas trick, a circus rigging murder, a note, a waterfront exchange.
Where Kane's side, including the studio energy around him, gives Batman his punch of image. The sharp ears, the cape as shape, the car, the feeling of bodies moving diagonally through space instead of politely standing in boxes. These stories are being refined issue by issue, not minted perfect all at once.
That refinement is the story of 1940 Batman. Number 35 hardens the city menace. Number 36 gives him Hugo Strange and more athletic velocity. Number 37 broadens the weird crime canvas. Number 38 introduces Robin. Number 39 proves the partnership works. You can practically hear the shop learning what its own best weapon is.
And Robin again points us toward Finger's instincts. Batman needed someone to talk to, needed a Watson, if you like. But more than that, he needed someone whose presence would reveal his hidden capacities, discipline, protectiveness, even tenderness without sentimentality. That is a writing solution as much as a commercial one.
Comics in 1940 are still a workshop. That's the honest thing. Characters are not frozen statues. They're hammered while hot. Batman in these issues is being hammered into shape right in front of us, and Finger and Kane are the two names you keep bumping into every time the thing gets better.
And the truth is, friends, we have still left meat on the bone. This is only part 1 of our Batman 1940 coverage. There is more night ahead for the Caped Crusader, and we are not done following him into it.
Before that, though, our next broadcast on the shortwave side will be Quality, Part 2, The Ray, Smash Comics number 14 through 17. Different company, different flavor, plenty to talk about there. Then our next standard broadcast brings us back to the regular lane with Sandman, 1940, Adventure Comics 46 through 57, and All-Star, and Back to the World Fair, 1940.
If you've got letters, disagreements, favorite Batman panels, or strong opinions about whether Robin improves the strip immediately or only after a settling in period, send them to distinguishedcomicsradio@gmail.com.
That's distinguishedcomicsradio@gmail.com. Still an odd address to say out loud on a proper radio program, but there it is.
From London, where the nights are dark enough to make a man understand why a hero would dress like a shadow, I'm Simon Carver.
And from New York, where the studio light is on and the cigars are, regrettably, not allowed near the control board, I'm George Wilson.
This has been Distinguished Comics Radio on KDCR. Keep your courage up, keep your eyes on the funny pages, and good night.
Good night, folks. Watch the headlines, watch the rooftops, and we'll see you on the next program.